94% chance that the market's going to have big returns. So effectively, if you either have stocks that you're holding on to, or you have stocks that you're going to buy while everyone else is selling, then you're going to do fine. Warren Buffett, he did a great job of making it very, very simple, very, very plain. He said, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. That's a big secret to investing, that when everybody's selling, that's when you want to buy. When everybody's buying, that's when you want to sell. And it's really not something that you have to overthink. Now, one of the things that you might have to kind of pay attention to is making sure you have a diversified portfolio, because every stock isn't gonna make you money. Every stock isn't going to be your friend, right? So ultimately, if you put your money in, you don't want all your money to be caught up in one investment or in one type of crypto. Now, let me tell you a little funny thing I just did. This is gonna make you laugh. I know that I'm not you guys know I'm not a big believer in some of these crappy coins like the Doge coins and the Bitcoin. Sorry, not Bitcoin. Bitcoin I believe in. Dogecoin I don't. Right. And so one of the things I did actually was last night, just for fun, I told my wife, I said, hey, I just bought some Dogecoin. And she just kind of laughed. She was like, you don't believe in stuff like that. And I said, no, actually, I think that there could be something happening right now with Dogecoin. Let me tell you why. Does anybody know that Elon Musk came in and he replaced his the icon for Twitter or something, the little whatever. Like, I don't know. All I know is that, let me say, how can I say this? I think it's even with his profile, he changed it to the little Doge dog. But I think that there's something where even if you just log into Twitter as a regular person and you're not even going to Elon Musk's account, you see, there we go. Like, I'm logging into Twitter now. I see the Doge dog as the first thing I see on the screen. And then in the upper left-hand corner, the Doge dog is on my screen. And I'm not looking at Elon Musk's page, right? So it was bigger than him just changing his profile pic to the Doge dog. It's literally him, him making the Doge dog kind of the mascot of all of Twitter, which is insane, right? And the reason I think this is interesting is because here's one of the things I want you to kind of understand in terms of wealth and money and where money comes from. A lot of wealth is kind of created. A lot of wealth is manifest. Like, rich people that have a lot of power can create their own wealth, and they can actually make something valuable. Like, I'll give you an example. This is funny. My brain goes all over the place, so I hope you can follow me on this. But yesterday I was doing something on this young lady named Black China, and people think I'm crazy because I'll talk about everything happening in the Black community, but they don't understand. I can always link it. It always links back to wealth and money and power and race and everything else. So I was talking about this lady named Black China, and Black China was this kind of a socialite. She hung out with the Kardashians. And she was kind of in that kind of raunchy space, and she used to be a stripper. And then Black China just decided to suddenly change her image. And now she's like a Christian woman. And she's like saying that anyone who has an OnlyFans account is going to hell. And, well, not that, but, she's kind of like saying that women are degrading themselves by doing these sorts of things. And she just decided to change her life and everything else. So it's been a real interesting conversation. Now, why do I bring up Black China? Well, when I always read bios of people before I talk about them just to understand their story. And one thing that, and really, truth be told, like, it's really kind of sad because her mom is like her mom's a complete mess. So now I understand why she made bad decisions when she was younger, because you don't have good parents, it's going to happen. But I noticed that her value went up when she was really hanging out with the Kardashians. And that, there's sort of a brand association effect that can occur where just by being in certain spaces with certain people, wealth is created. She became a much more valuable commodity because she was friends with the Kardashians. So effectively, my point in bringing this up is to say that wealthy and powerful people can create wealth just by endorsing something. Right, just by mentioning something. When Beyonce mentioned OnlyFans in one of her songs, the OnlyFans platform grew by billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in economic value, right? Just because she said in the song. Jay-Z used to strategically mention, various brands like Tom Ford. He had a whole song called Tom Ford. It was the dumbest song I ever heard, but it was a song about Tom Ford. And then suddenly everybody's like, oh, Tom Ford. So when you see Tom Ford in the mall, you're like, oh yeah, I know Tom Ford because Jay-Z was rapping about it. So basically, Elon Musk is rapping about Dogecoin. That's my point. Elon Musk is rapping about Dogecoin. And here's the thing. When I bought my Doge, I didn't buy it like saying, "Hey, baby, guess what? We're gonna finally get our big break. This is where we're gonna get rich. We're going to the moon now, baby. I got us some Dogecoin. That's gonna take us to the top." No, you know what I did? I bought it because I said, it might be fun to just see what happens here and to be a part of it if something crazy does occur. And the thing about it is that you can do that as an investor. One of the things I don't ever want you to believe, though, you'll never get this from me. I don't want to talk about myself in the third person. My wife says that's weird. That's a sign of narcissism. But the one thing you won't ever get from me is, me telling you that you have to take everything so seriously. If you ever make an investment or if you ever want to blow some money or do something a little crazy, I'm not a person that's going to tell you that that's a bad thing. I'll just tell you, like, okay, just make sure you understand the pros and the cons. That's my job as your teacher. My job as your teacher is not to tell you what to do. My job as your teacher is to make sure you understand the consequences of all those choices. Now, I'm looking here at the Dogecoin. I want to see what happened to the Doge that I bought yesterday. Let me see. I got the Doge in my account. Okay, it looks like it went down a little bit. It went down today by about 3.5%. Okay, so Dogecoin experiment has not been working yet. But you know what? I really wonder if Elon Musk is sending out a hint that he's going to do something significant with Dogecoin. So if he were to come out and say, you know what, you can use Dogecoin for transactions on Twitter or something crazy like that, then he would effectively be almost not necessarily, but kind of creating his own currency. And I wouldn't be surprised, with the way the world's changing, with everything from Chat GPT to all these other technologies and EVs and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something shifting in terms of currency. Now, some of you have been asking me about this as well. How many of you have seen where there are other countries that are now trying to get away from using the US dollar for their transactions? Anybody seen that, where China and India and some other countries are trying to, Russia, stuff like that? And some of you have asked me, what's that going to do to the value of the dollar? It doesn't help the value of the dollar, that's for sure. It's not an economic calamity. They've been trying to do this for many, many decades. They've been doing this for many decades. And so, but what it does do is it does get rid of the demand for the dollar, or minimize the demand for the dollar. So when the demand, an asset, its value depends on how bad people want it. So when you have a big chunk of the world, what they call the BRIC countries, Iran and Russia and I can't remember what all the BRIC countries are. I think Brazil. Let me see. Let me type this in. BRIC countries. The BRIC countries are Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Brazil, Russia, India, and China. I thought Iran was in there, but they're not. But Iran, I'm sure, is heavily aligned with the BRIC. And so the BRIC countries, they basically changed their political systems to basically try to get away from the use of the US dollar and to develop their own independent economies. Eventually they will. And eventually the dollar will not dominate the way that it has. And the New World Order has been something that, and when I say New World Order, I'm not talking about conspiracy theories and people putting chips in your brain. I'm talking about the New World Order in terms of which countries have explicit dominance over the rest of the world. China is well positioned to dominate in the next century. They're doing everything right. They're just one little thing that they're doing that we just for some reason forgot to do is they're investing in their children. China produces more engineers than the United States, Japan, and India combined. Their engineers are better trained. They can actually start. They don't spend 4 years in college, partying and then try to learn things once they get on the job. Our engineers have to be trained once they get on the job. Chinese engineers can graduate from school and they know how to do their job on the first day. On the very first day, they know how to do their job. So this is just the little things like this are a big deal. I taught in China. I taught at a school with Chinese students who wanted to learn English, and I taught them in English, and I got paid a lot of money to do it. And I really loved it. And it was in Shanghai, and I just loved it because the students were super respectful. Many of them had never seen a Black person up close, so there was like a novelty in seeing a Black person. Like all through China, people they would hand me a cigarette and want to take a picture with me because they'd never seen a Black person up close. But it wasn't racism. I didn't get offended by it. And I remember teaching these students, and the way they conducted themselves was just very different from what I saw with my students at Syracuse. First off, they were super disciplined. They did what I told them. There was no pushback, no talk back. And now I had to convince them to feel safe participating in class, because I said, why won't anybody talk? Why I ask a question and no one wants to answer? Everyone's scared. And like you could ask somebody, hey, did you eat breakfast this morning? And they wouldn't say a word. And they'll be sitting there eating a donut or something, eating a Danish, like as they're talking to you, and they still won't answer the question. And I had to get them eventually to feel comfortable answering questions. And what happened was, one of the students said, when you're young, you're taught to sit on your hands and you don't talk when the teacher is talking. You respect the teacher. And I said, gosh, it would be so cool. Imagine if, in our community or in America, we really had respect for teachers and the people that have knowledge, instead of, sort of following behind celebrities and stuff like that. And in fact, in China, they deliberately downplay that. They make specific laws, like they say that if you're a celebrity and you're flaunting your wealth on social media, that's against the law. You'll get arrested for that. You cannot go flaunting your wealth on social media. Even their men, they want their men to be ready to fight. And so they say that we don't want any images of men who are very feminine on our television networks, because that's going to make little boys want to become girls. And this, so again, you can think what you want about that. Maybe some of you don't think that's terrible and draconian, but it's very specific in terms of creating the culture that they want. Another thing that that my students told me that was really interesting was they said, well, the reason that it's very hard for people to raise their hand and say things is because you're taught at a very early age that the group is more important than the individual. That if you are loud and obnoxious and you stand out, you're not seen as some sort of hero. You're seen as a clown, as a buffoon. People shun you for that. They make fun of you because you're drawing all this attention to yourself, and you're not, you put yourself ahead of the group. And what happens is that plays out in terms of family structure, commitment to family, respect for the father, respect for the mother, respect for the grandparents, and so some people may say, oh, well, that's oppressive because people should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. Some would say that this is an orderly society that has that ability to really dominate economically and otherwise, because everything they do as one collective. They do it in lockstep. In the United States, everybody's going in every direction. Democrats, Republicans, independents, white, black, feminists, traditional, conservatives, whatever. Everybody's fighting, everybody's going in different directions. Whereas in China, it's very coordinated. And I remember also that they even had to invite me to play basketball. They invited me to play basketball with them, and I didn't understand what that meant. I was like, well, don't you just go to the basketball court and just say, I got next? And I got there and I learned that that's not the way it is. If you're not part of the group, then if they don't know you, they don't bring you in. And so this made me think about group economics. When I talked to you guys about powernomics, get together with your group and working with your group to achieve goals that you can't achieve as an individual, instead of getting away from this individualism that we have in America. Everybody wants to be a single mother, single father, do it all by myself, solopreneur. I do it all alone. I cut everybody off. Well, in China, they just don't think that way. And so when I was at the basketball court, I remember that I was the best basketball player in China that I saw. They love basketball, but they were terrible at it. I'm Black. I grew up playing basketball. So I knew how to, I knew things they didn't even know how to do. It was kind of hilarious. I felt like Michael Jordan on the basketball court. But when I was out there, I was waiting to play the next game. And they did not let me play because the guys there didn't know me. And then what happened was one of the guys left. They were playing 5-on-5, and then they had 5-on-4. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to get in because they only have 4 players, so they need a 5th one. Do you know that they played 5-on-4? They chose to play 5-on-4 before bringing in somebody they did not know, who was not part of the group. And eventually I got to play because there were some Korean guys there who were a little bit more Americanized, and they let me play. And they also understood like I was better than all of them, because they're like, oh, he's Black, he's probably good. Now, and it's true, I was better than them. But still, though, it really fascinated me to just see the culture. So let's just be clear. Like our son knows Chinese. And I said, it's good that you know Chinese, because China's going to be dominant by the year 2050 or 2040. China is going to be dominating in the same way the United States is dominant right now. The United States does not invest in its future. The politicians are very short-sighted. They've pretty much screwed up the economic system in America in the sense that they have an unsustainable amount of debt. Eventually, they're going to default on the debt. So what you're watching right now with the American economic and political system is you're watching a train crash in slow motion. The one thing that America does well, that's going to play out well for the country, is that we do have good entrepreneurs, like those who really create the startups, and we have excellent capital markets. So what we're really good at is raising money in a really efficiently run stock market and raising, tens of billions of dollars to go out and create these products where capitalism mandates us. Capitalism is an economic religion to some extent, in my view. I see it as like an economic religion. So our economic religion of capitalism leads us to go out and feel like, okay, we've got to go conquer the world. Once you've made, $100 million in one country, you want to go make another $100 million in another country, and you can't stop, won't stop, you don't stop until you make all the money that you can possibly make. Now let's talk about that. Since speaking of can't stop, won't stop, did anybody see that where Diddy was I saw Diddy online. It was really interesting. And by the way, this is I'm gonna do, if you don't mind today, I'm gonna do a stream of consciousness on economics so we can pick up the economic lessons and some different things that we're seeing right now, in the world. I saw Diddy, and he was giving his son this expensive watch or something, and it was like some like three of a kind watch. I guess he has three sons, and he gave each of his sons like one of the three designs or something, and it was like some watch that costs like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands if not millions of dollars. Did anybody see that? And he was talking about preparing his son to be a king, and that this is love and everything else. I don't know if any of y'all saw that, but I saw it. It was really interesting to watch. And they were and when I see something like that happen, I stop myself from judging it right away. I say, I try my best not to judge it. I try to say, I wonder what people think about that. Like, that's kind of what I end up processing. Like I said to my wife, I said, I don't think I would do that, but let's see. I wonder what people think, right? So I started reading the comments, right? So some of the comments were, kind of funny. Like, I think one guy said, my wife, my mother put a muffler in my car, and then somebody else said, my son is he's graduating from college, and I send him some donuts every month, like just to like or whatever. And she's like, that's the best I can do, So you would see people make comments like that, but then I saw comments where I saw somebody say, oh, he really loves his sons. And which to me was interesting, because it's like equating that money and love, materialism and love. And then there were some people who said, this is silly, like this is ridiculous, this doesn't make any sense. Now I'd be curious to know what you all think. What do you think? I mean, do you think that was ridiculous? Do you think that was love? Do you think that was I don't know. And again, just be honest. I mean, I'm not judging it. I'm curious to know what you think. And then I'm going to kind of give you some perspectives on it. And in fact, I'm gonna do a quick poll. I'm gonna put this poll in the Zoom chat so we can get some percentages. I'm gonna put ridiculous, it was love, and then maybe like, how about I'm not sure? Okay, there we go. So answer that poll if you could. Let me see it. Wait, hold on. I think this is. Oh, sorry. Don't answer that one. This is it. Let me launch the other one. Oh crap! Sorry, guys. I apparently oh, here we go. Again, sorry. Don't answer the first one. Answer the second one. There we go. Okay, so it looks like so far ridiculous is winning. Okay, and one of you said it was love, that it was showing love. And be honest. Don't think. I mean, no, I'm not going to judge the answer. And then I'm going to kind of give you some perspectives on it in terms of what the research says about this kind of thing, and what I see sort of happening here. Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So I'm going to show you the results of the poll. It looks like ridiculous won by 61%. I'm not sure it's 36%, and it was love gets 3%. So let me share the results with you so you can kind of see. All right. So the majority of you, 2/3 of you, think that what Diddy did was ridiculous. 2/3 of you, or 60% of you. So that's is that 2/3? It's a little less than 2/3. A little less than 2/3 of you feel like what Diddy did was kind of silly, in terms of, now so I watched this video, right? And I tried to watch it and try to understand it in terms of, because remember I was telling you that wealth is culture. Wealth is culture. And the thing that you have to understand about America is that rich people have a certain culture, and people that are not rich have a different culture. That's just what it is, right? So in Diddy's world, the materialism, the diamonds and the jewels and the gold are an important part of his validation process, right? That's part of what has allowed him to feel successful and feel different from everyone else. The things that are expensive for other people are cheap for him, right? So, for us, we might say, why would you spend $100,000 on a birthday party or 300,000 or whatever? And for him, he can afford that, right? He can do that and still be a billionaire, and it's okay, right? So, so I was talking to my wife about it, and I said, it's really interesting because there's a lot of expensive stuff I feel like I could buy our kids, but I would never do it. I just wouldn't do it because I would feel silly. I would feel like it was just a bad lesson for them, because I want them to get the joy of working for something and actually knowing what it feels like to accomplish something, and get what you deserve. So I feel like I'd be stealing something from them by just making life easy, right? Like getting our 16-year-old is, she's going to be 16 soon. She's already going to be, just naturally spoiled because she's, she's not growing up poor. But I'm going to, try to consciously say, no, let's not put her in the Audi, put her in a hoopty. You know what I mean? Like, let's let her go work at Burger King for a little while. Let her do some stuff that's going to allow her to have a range of experiences as opposed to the easy, privileged life. But then again, though, we're in Hawaii right now, right? So there are experiences that she'll naturally get because she is growing up in a household that does have a little bit of privilege. So it's not the privilege that's the crime. It's really, the question becomes, what does that mean? And what does that say from a cultural standpoint? So what I see with Diddy is, he's always been a showman. He's always built a lot of his brand, again, from hip hop culture, not just from wealth culture, but hip hop culture. Hip hop culture is heavily connected to excessive materialism, right? Diddy's always been the flashy one. He's always, really presented a lifestyle that was aspirational for other people, which helped him maintain his relevance as an artist. I knew somebody back when I used to hang out with Al Sharpton a little bit. This was many years ago. I don't agree with him politically now, but Al Sharpton, by the way, I don't agree with him politically, but he's a very smart man, and he's a survivor, and he has the best. He tells the best stories ever. So one day he was telling me a story about a rapper. They called him, and the rapper said that he was having financial problems, and he was telling the rapper, well, why do you have 10 cars? You don't need 10 cars. And the rapper was like, well, I have to maintain this image in order to sell records. And he said that image is going to make you go broke. And that was one area where we did agree. I said, yeah, that's kind of tough to pretend like you're rich, even as you're like drowning financially. So hip hop culture, when it became very materialistic, and Diddy was a part of that, that created like this weird paradox where all the rappers, I know rappers who don't have a nickel in the bank, who rap about how much money they have. That is a terribly stressful position to be in, because you're kind of faking it till you make it, but you never really actually make it at a level where you're not killing yourself financially in the process. So the smart rappers, in my view, were the ones like D1, who literally would rap about driving a 98 Honda Accord. He rapped about the fact that he paid off his student loans. He rapped about the fact that he had no car note. And he made that part of his brand. His brand is, I'm not materialistic. And as a result, D1 is a very wealthy man, right? I don't know how much money he has in the bank, but I know D1 is an investor, and we talk about economics and his next financial move, and he owns property, and he's doing all these great things with his money. So with Diddy though, it's interesting though, because I don't think Diddy is broke. I don't think he's pretending to be rich. I think he really does have money. And so him giving his son this expensive stuff. One other thing that the studies show about excessive materialism is that excessive materialism impresses Black people because Black people have collectively kind of a self-esteem issue. You have a self-esteem assimilation issue where you don't feel that the rest of America accepts you. So if you go to Ebony Magazine's video on how to sell to the Negro, when they made this video in the 1950s, one thing that they talked about in this video is that Black people will spend money just to make you feel like they're important. Like they like to buy nice things so that because they're hoping that if they buy nice stuff, they're not going to be treated, in a negative way. But the thing is that this isn't just true for Black people. This is actually true for poor people. So a lot of times when you see a poor person who comes up from poverty, right, who started from the bottom, now he's here, right? First thing he's going to really do is show you all the material stuff that he has. He's going to show you his cars. He's going to show you his house. He's going to show you everything. And then he's going to be holding his hands together, praying to God, thanking him for his blessings, and with a ring on every finger and 55 gold chains and all this other stuff. Whereas if you see somebody who grew up with money, they're not necessarily going to end up doing all that. It's sort of like just assumed. When you get around billionaires, like billionaire tech founders and stuff like that, they just assume everybody's got millions of dollars in the bank. It becomes gaudy and just weird to really walk around bragging about how much money you have because everybody's got money. Who cares? It's like when I would go to an academic conference and everybody has a PhD. You look silly if you show up and they say, "What's your name?" And I say, "My name is Dr. Watkins, and this is Dr. Smith." They're going to be like, "You're Brad, you're Boyce, you're Joe." Like that's what they do because everybody's got a PhD. Like, why are you bragging about something that everybody's got? So that was another thing that I thought about. And the other thing too is it's interesting is that material possessions can mislead you because they can give you the false impression that somehow having that material item is going to make your life better and make you feel better. And it does make you feel better temporarily. Fancy material items present a dopamine rush that does make you feel better for a short period of time. But then the rush wears off and then you have to keep going back to get it. That's where you get, retail therapy and people that become addicted to shopping and they just want to buy a new car and buy a new this and buy a new that. So the problem is that if you're broken on the inside, and you're using material items to fill a void that really can't be filled, then you're going to find yourself just going down this deeper and deeper hole that's going to destroy you financially and lead you to a point where you say, wait a minute, I don't get it. I have all this stuff, but I'm still not happy. And that's because you haven't really done that work internally to fix whatever's broken inside of you, right? And so what they actually find when it comes to money is that the best use of money is to spend it on an experience. It's not just investing. Investing's cool. Investing's important. Investing gives you financial security, but investing can be a little bit boring sometimes. Like, okay, I just own this stock and it's just sitting there, right? Or, so when I get bored with the stock, I'll go and be like, you know what, let me go buy, I'm going to buy a yacht. I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to buy a yacht and I'm going to rent the yacht out. I'm going to create a yacht charter business. And at the same time, I'm going to have this boat that I can have experiences in and really enjoy having this boat. But then even further than that, taking a trip, going on a trip. With our kids, I told my wife, I said, I really want us every blue moon, every now and then to take the kids on a trip that they're going to remember 30 years from now. Like I want it to be epic. I want it to be a really great experience because those experiences are actually what stay with you. And that's what the studies show. The studies show that when you spend a little money on experiences, that stays with you better than spending your money on material stuff where you enjoy it for a little while and then it just sits there. And then you got to go buy some more material stuff to keep filling that void. So I'm not one to judge what Diddy did, with his son. I wouldn't do it. I kind of feel like I'd rather give my son something that money can't buy, right? Like I'd rather give him, time. Time is something that is really valuable, for a person that you can't get more of. God doesn't give you more time, or give that person love or wisdom and things like that. Like, I feel like that's a deeper, richer gift to give. And I'm not going to assume Diddy doesn't give those things. I assume that he does. But I think that sort of giving the expensive material item and then doing it in front of everybody kind of feeds into a type of mentality, right? It feeds into a type of culture that's very gaudy, very showy. And there are rich people that do that. And again, like I said, in America, you have the culture of the wealthy, and then you have the culture of the people that are not wealthy. And in America, the other thing that's happening is that there's a bigger gap between the rich and the poor. And it's only going to be accelerated by things like artificial intelligence and all that stuff. I mean, it's going to get crazy. It's already getting pretty crazy. It's going to get crazier over time, which is going to be yet another one of those things that ends up hurting and harming and maybe destroying America long term. Remember, the country's not that old. I mean, there's no guarantee America is going to be in existence 300 years from now. So effectively, I would encourage you to kind of think that stuff through. One mistake that the Black middle class makes, because we're all so proud of the fact that that a lot of us rose out of the ghetto. I don't know how many of you started off poor and now you're doing well. Like you got a good job and you're making good money. You got some money in the bank, maybe a nice business. How many of you started off poor? I started off poor. When I was born, it was just me and my mother. My father was not there. Nobody was there except me and my mother and this white nurse. And we had no money. And I'm sure if my mom had been near a Planned Parenthood clinic, I would not be here because they would have said, you're too poor to have a baby. You need to just go ahead and abort and just try again later. And so we had no money. We were very, very poor for a really long time. And I just watched my parents, my mother married my father when I was 3. And he tells me stories about, living on the Army base and everything else. And because they lived on the base because they didn't have any money. And so over time, I watched them kind of build themselves up. I watched them, buy a home and accumulate equity. I saw them save their money. I saw them build their credit. I saw them get better jobs, through the years. And so then their goal was, we want our kids to do better than us. So even in the middle of my mother, being this young mom with where all her friends had babies at the same time, and we all grew up together, we all played together. My parents just had a different plan for me and my sister. And then my brother came along in '83, but they really just had a different plan for us. And the plan was like, no, I don't want my child to go to jail. I don't want him to be ghetto. I don't want him to be stuck in a terrible situation. I don't want him to be uneducated. I don't want him struggling. So they just kind of guided us in a certain way, to the point where all my friends that I grew up with, almost none of them were quote unquote successful. Like almost none of them are in a position where they feel economically secure or they've achieved what they wanted in life. Most of them ended up in really tough situations. And so the thing is that, so in this next generation where you're doing better than you were when you started, you're doing better than your parents did when they were little. The temptation for middle-class Black people is to get your children all the things that you never had. It's to make sure they have the life that you used to dream about when you were a kid. And what they find is that when you do that, you're really harming the child, because they don't know another life. They can't really appreciate the blessing because they've never known what it's like to not have the blessing, right? They can't appreciate the sunshine because they've never been through the rain. They can't appreciate the wealth because they've never been poor. They can appreciate the things that you worked hard to get them because they never had to work hard for those things. So they say that Black middle class people, when you sort of create that culture of kind of laziness, like here you're 16, let me get you a sports car at 16. So now you have nothing to work for anymore. Now you're bored and depressed. So he's like, well, I might as well use drugs or something because I got nothing really to keep me motivated every day. And then also in terms of just your understanding that success and wealth, again, everything is cultural, right? So you kind of created this culture of complacency, where now the child's sense of purpose has been pretty much depleted because you kind of started the race for them at the finish line. They're starting the race at the finish line. So there's no point in trying to run because the race is already over. So I would encourage you to kind of just think about that and just sort of realize, that your job is not to make it easy for anybody. Your job is to maybe be there as a little bit of a safety net to give them some advice and support. One other thing I would say is that, when I talk to our kids about professions and careers and all that, I do tell them that, hey, you do have the luxury of having the opportunity to be happy. So let's talk about what that really means, what it means to find your happiness, find your bliss, do the internal work necessary. I know it sounds kind of deep, but it's not that deep. This stuff is right there on the internet. Like, what does it mean to do the internal work to find the things that are going to just make you happy and blissful? So I might say little things like, well, working for racist white people, that's not going to make you very happy. Getting up and going to work every day to a job that you hate isn't going to make you very happy. What does make you happy is being able to sleep in, go to the movies when you want to, being able to spend time with people you love, doing the work that you want, maybe having your own business where you're the boss, little things like that, right? So just sort of keep that in mind. Let me keep going down this other economic stream of consciousness today in terms of where wealth comes from. There was one other thing that I mentioned. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I was thinking about this. Did anybody follow what happened with the NCAA and that whole controversy with the black girl? And she did the thing, and the white girl had done the thing, and they were just kind of, and there was a back and forth, and so it was interesting, and I know how most black people feel. Like about 98% of us are like cheering for the black girl, right? And I am too. It's fine. I mean, and they're both very good players. I looked them both up. One's named Angel Reese. She averaged, I think, 30 points a game in the NCAA tournament, which is just unbelievable. She set the NCAA record, and then the white girl, Caitlin Clark, is really good too. She was the player of the year, right? So this is like, amazing. So I started thinking about this, and I looked up a story, and the story said that the NCAA championship set a record for having the highest ratings ever of any NCAA tournament game ever, right? So this game set a ratings record. So they made more money from this game than they'd ever made from any game before, and at least in terms of ratings. And I said, this is interesting because this is where wealth comes from. So when I talk about black athletes creating their own professional sports league, I want you to think about this in terms of wealth. Why is it that the Dallas Cowboys were purchased by Jerry Jones for $150 million 30 years ago, and now they're worth $8 billion? Why is it that the Hallis family was able to buy the Green Bay Packers, or excuse me, the Chicago Bears for $500, and now the Bears are worth $6 billion? How is it that the Hunt family paid just a few dollars for the Kansas City Chiefs, and now the Chiefs are worth $6-7 billion? And I can keep going down the list. How did that happen? Well, it's not because the players got better. Like NFL players have always been good. NBA players have been good for like the last 40, 50 years. It was because they eventually had brands that had a story, and they were stories that people cared about. It's the story. That's why, in fact, there's a whole book called Building a Story Brand. It's the story that adds economic value to an asset. So let's go back to the NCAA. The NCAA is probably, women's college basketball as an entity is probably worth an extra $500 million or more just because of this one incident, just because of this one racial controversy, right? If I were in the NCAA, I would early next season, I'd be like, we got to get LSU and Iowa on the schedule so they could play each other and kind of have a rematch and whatever. And these two players, and then we're going to talk about the story from last year and everything that happened and the controversy around it and all that. Why? Well, because that's a multi-million-dollar story right there, right? And so it's a story that people care about. A lot of you were talking about college basketball, women's college basketball, and you never talked about it before. You normally on a typical season, like if I asked you who won the championship last year and the year before, you probably couldn't tell me, but you could tell me who won this year because it was a story that you care about. So that made me think about Magic and Bird. A lot of people don't know that the NBA was struggling financially in the 1970s. They weren't doing that well. They were losing money. Their TV deals, they get about $22 million a year for the broadcast rights of all the NBA games. Well, Magic and Bird came along in college, a white guy against a black guy, two superstar players, just like Angel Reese, just like Caitlin Clark, and they were going back and forth at it in the championship game, just like Angel Reese, just like Caitlin Clark. And then they continued that rivalry in the NBA, where you had, the angry white boys out of Boston against the Showtime brothers out of Los Angeles, and it became East Coast, West Coast, Celtics, Lakers, black against white. It became a story everybody cared about. So that story it allowed the opportunity for monetization of that brand in a way that had never been done before. So the NBA suddenly had all kinds of merchandising deals. They had the TV rights. At the start of the 80s, the TV rights were sold for about $22 million a year. By the end of the 80s, the TV rights were almost $200 million a year. The Jordan era, where Nike invested millions of dollars in creating one sneaker for one guy, the whole Michael Jordan era happened because the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson racial controversy had gotten so many people interested in the NBA. So Jordan and Bird cleared the path for Michael Jordan to go on and do what he did, right? So effectively, this is what I see. And, so when I look at this, I see a Jordan Bird situation. And that's the difference, right? In terms of sports leagues that take off and the ones that don't, the ones that make money and the ones that lose money. You have, because think about it, you have leagues like the XFL or whatever they're called that have great players. They're better than the players in college. Well, if they're better than the players in college, why wouldn't people want to watch the XFL as opposed to watching a college football game? Well, because it's not a story that they care about. If you tell them that the Toronto Bears are going to play against the Cleveland Buccaneers, like nobody cares about that. Nobody knows these teams. These are not stories that people are connected to from an emotional level. So effectively, this is something that I think I wanted to share that with you so you can understand like what it looks like when people create brands and create leagues. And one of the reasons why I advocate so heavily for a lot of these athletes that, these wealthy Black people that brag about how much money they have. Like I really say, well, why don't you create your own sports league and then create stories that people care about, tell stories that people are going to get connected to, and that's going to lead people to want to be a part of that league, right? So one of the stories, I think an easy story is that Black people need to own a league, that we're tired of being mistreated. We're tired of fighting to get to the 1% of an NFL team. We're tired of being treated like slaves. We're tired of being disrespected. We want to own our own media. We want to own our own sports leagues, all this other stuff. Like all this is doable, but you have to have the right mindset. You have to have a creator, developer, business development mindset. A business development mindset is very different from, say, a job seeker mindset. A job seeker mindset is very short-term, short-sighted. It's like, I need to attach myself to something that's already here, as opposed to a developer mindset, which says, I have a vision of something that's not yet here, and I'm going to pour into this so that eventually it becomes something amazing. Like right now, I'm staying in this place in Hawaii called the Hawaiian Village. And it's funny, I was walking through this place, it's massive, and I saw this timeline of all the great things that have happened in the history of Hawaii for the last 100 years. And one part of it, they showed the guy who came up with the vision for the Hawaiian Village. And they talked about how he raised the money and how hard it was and how, they showed the construction and everything else. And I'm like, wow, now this amazing, big, gigantic, multi-billion-dollar complex exists because somebody had a vision and they had the patience and the commitment to invest in the vision. So ultimately, what I think Black people need in terms of wealth is we have to have that vision. Some of you are mentioning Ice Cube and his basketball league. Maybe that's why Ice Cube and I are friends. I don't know. I talked to him when I was in LA, and I think that maybe that's one thing that we do have in common is that that he is a person that has created his own league. I think the Big Three league could do really, really well. That's what it takes. So, all right. So let me answer some of your questions here on the Q&A section. Let's see here. Tina says, explain how to keep earning doing cover calls, stock price drops below what I paid. You know what, Tina, we're going to do a meeting of the Prime program where we're going to talk about covered calls. If anybody wants to join, you can go to drboyceprime.com. But I'll answer your question really quickly, but I don't want to go over everyone's head because this is more, Tuesdays are for stocks. And then the Prime class is for covered calls and income generation, all that. Now, if you paid 67, the stock price drops to 60, does this affect my covered call position? How to manage risk? One of the things you want to do, Tina, is basically roll down. So if you log in at drboyceprime.com, you'll see where you can, I show you how to do a roll down. So if your price drops and you still have time to the expiration, you can change the deal. You can just get another option with a lower strike price if you want to, or you can let the other option expire and then just sell another option the following week and just keep generating income from that same stock repeatedly. So that's the short answer to that question. And I'll give you the longer answer when we get to class. All right, so let's see. Catrice says, you mentioned real estate investment trust a few weeks ago. Can't recall if it was an ETF. What were your suggestions again? I can't remember, Catrice, which one we talked about. I'm trying to remember. Gosh, I don't remember. If you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com and look under what Dr. Boyce is buying, and you'll see some real estate investment trusts I mentioned. I cannot think of any like right off the top of my head. I know I own some, but I don't remember what the ticker symbol was. But real estate investment trusts, there are a ton of them, and I do think real estate investment is a safer investment in this environment, and I think real estate is just a good place to diversify your money. So just log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com and look under what Dr. Boyce is buying, and you can see all that stuff for sure. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Pauline says there's a lot of talk about buying gold. What would be your recommendation about buying gold in times like these? Let's see. Is there a stock you would recommend if you wanted to invest in gold? If I wanted to invest in gold, you know what I would do? You know what I actually, some of y'all see my wife back here. So since she's a little shy, I'm gonna put on I'm gonna blur my background so that she can walk around, and there we go. There we go. See that way I'm protecting her privacy. But anyway, so let's see here. Pauline says, what would be your recommendation of buying gold in times like these? Yeah, the thing about gold, Pauline, is that gold is the kind of thing that you buy not to get rich. Gold will not typically make you rich. Gold helps you stay rich. Gold helps you protect what you have. So when you see times like this where inflation's out of control, where there's economic instability in the economy, that's when gold tends to become very popular, and lots of people want to own gold. Now, the thing about gold is that you don't have to buy like big gold bars and put them in your house. I think that's kind of a wasteful way to buy gold. You can actually buy an ETF in gold. The ticker symbol is GLD. GLD. And if you look up that ticker symbol, you can buy that, and that'll go up. And I think the GLD ETF has actually done quite well over the last few years. Maybe the last 5 years, it's made a lot of money. So there you go. All right, let's see. Hans says, what kinds of stocks should I put in my Roth IRA? I've been putting all the stocks in that you share with us. Yeah, well, those stocks, if you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com and look under what Dr. Boyce is buying, all those companies are companies that I personally would invest in myself. This is not investment advice, but it's what I buy a lot of these stocks. And then the ones I don't buy are just stocks where I say, gosh, if I had extra money to deploy, I'd buy this one too. The key is diversification. And if you're talking about something like your IRA, you don't want to be overly risky. So you don't want a lot of crazy stuff in there. That's not exactly where you put your Dogecoin and stuff like that. If the dollar crashes, how will this affect stocks and options? Tina, the dollar's not going to crash. It's pretty strong and sturdy. If it drops in value, then that could theoretically even be inflationary for stocks. There's nothing to say that a decline in the value of the dollar is going to kill the stock market. It's in some ways the dollar over the last 12 years where we've had expansive monetary policy, the dollar's been eroded as a result of that, but you see stocks going up, up, up. That is what they call asset inflation. Asset inflation is a type of inflation that has occurred over a very long time where the rich are getting richer because rich people own things like stocks, and they own those financial assets that benefit when you have an inflationary economy. So just keep that in mind. Let's see your next question. And by the way, I'll be in Houston on April 21st for the Black Wealth Bootcamp. So if you'd like to join us, just go to my website, boycewatkins.com, and you can join us. And we'll be doing a 2-day deep dive on how to get off the corporate plantation. And also I'll cover some parts of my book, the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I created a 100-page study guide on how to implement the 10 Commandments into your family so you can build generational wealth that'll last many, many generations. So if you'd like to join us, just go to boycewatkins.com. We'll meet in Houston, April 21st. All right, so let's see. How do you invest in emerging markets? Asked Tina. Look for an ETF or a mutual fund that does emerging markets. If you go to like Vanguard or something like that, and you look for an emerging market ETF, you should be able to find it there. Rain Pearson, good morning, Dr. Boyce. Do taxes have to be paid on dividend gains that are automatically reinvested in the stock market ETF? Eventually, yes, but if you don't sell, then you don't have a realized gain. The realized gain is when you have to pay. When you sell something, that's when you realize you come outside, so to speak, and you're showing your gain, and that's when the IRS comes after you. Let's see here. So let's see. Rain says, if so, dividend taxes have to be paid quarterly, or can I wait until next year? Yeah, you don't have to pay. If you get the money and you reinvest it, check with your tax accountant though. Check with your tax accountant just to be sure. But yeah, typically if you're reinvesting, you don't pay until you sell. Rarick says, are there sectors in the stock market that really don't have a lot of ups and downs? Yeah, things like utilities, that's pretty stable. A lot of the companies in the S&P 500, like the top companies, are pretty stable, like companies like Apple and stuff like that. So like, for example, if you're in the Prime program, which stands for passive recurring income machine, and you want to generate income from the options or from the stocks that you own, there are some of the students that are just selling options every month on companies like Apple. And the thing about selling options on a company like Apple is you don't have a lot of the instability, and also you can make more money selling options on Apple than you can on most real estate deals. Most real estate deals will not pay you as much as selling the options on your stock every single month. So, I'll just tell you, that to me is an easier way to make money than buying property and dealing with tenants and evicting people and paying for, when the bathroom when the bathroom falls apart and all this other crap that you got to do when you're a landlord. I like selling options more than I like real estate, to be honest with you, and because the ROI is better and I can do it from my bed. So anybody who's interested in learning how to do this, just go to drboyceprime.com. You can join us for class, and everything's recorded, so everything's in there already as well. drboyceprime.com, PRIME. What are your thoughts on T-bills? Asked Rarick. T-bills have become more appealing because the Federal Reserve has been increasing interest rates. So as the Fed increases interest rates, that has driven people to risk-free assets, because these risk-free assets, these T-bills, are paying more. They're paying a higher ROI. So a lot of people, and the problem is the Fed, it has caused the run on the banks. The Fed has caused the banks to become less appealing, because think about it. If you put your money in the bank and the bank's like, oh, we'll give you 3% or whatever, but you know that you can put your money in a T-bill and get 4 or 5% or whatever, then why would you not put your money in a T-bill? Why would you not put your money in a money market or something that's going to go, bypass the middleman? Like, why go to the bank when you can just go straight to a T-bill or whatever? So a lot of people are taking their money out of the banks because the Fed has jacked up the interest rate so much. And then simultaneously, what happened with Silicon Valley Bank is that the Fed's increase of the interest rates reduced the value of their collateral, or of their assets. Right. So they owned all these long-term government bonds. And what happens is that when the Fed increases interest rates, the value of those bonds start dropping. And as the value of those bonds start dropping, the bank becomes shakier. Its capital base is being depleted. So that's what caused the run on Silicon Valley Bank, because as soon as that information got out, everybody ran away and started pulling their money out. And then the next thing you know, the bank collapsed. Let's see. Jacinta says, do you recommend investing as an accredited investor in private stocks that aren't on the market yet? Is there any program you have that delves into that? I know that there are certain requirements, but just wondering. Yeah, you know what? In the Prime program, I did actually talk to my brother, who is in the venture capital space. And I told him, I said, I really would like for you to help the students learn about things like, what do they call it? Special purpose vehicles and things like that, where you can gather a group of people and invest in something together and do it kind of as a legal equity sharing kind of situation. The thing about it is that it's not as glamorous as you might think, though. I've done some of those like accredited investor private equity deals, and it's okay. It just hasn't been something that I've been like gung ho about. Because a lot of them flop. A lot of them don't ever succeed. And even the ones that do succeed, they lock your money up for a long time. I'm a person that wants to have access to my money. I'm not into like letting my money go and drift off into the wind for 5 years, or 10 years or whatever. If I put my time and energy into a 5-year project, I like to be the one in control of that project. I'm not one who is like, oh yeah, here, take $100,000 of my money, and then I'll see it again in the year 2028. Maybe if you can possibly sell the company or go public or whatever. However, on the brighter side, I will say I invested in a company called TribeVest, and I put $75,000 into TribeVest. I have not seen that money. It's been locked up for 4 years. Last time I checked, my investment in TribeVest is now worth about $350,000. But it's all theoretical at this point. There's nothing it's not like I can go and take that investment and use it as collateral to get a loan. It's not like I can go and say, okay, give me my money right now. I can't do that, So I'm not a fan of these private equity, illiquid startup investments, unless you're right there in the mix of it and able to have some say in what the company does and all that. So that's my 2 cents. That's been my experience. And then I haven't even talked about the investments I made where I got none of my money back, or where I was, I invested in something, in a big project that was actually right here in the Black community. It was very, it was one of the, conscious community projects and involving like buying a bunch of land and renting out the units and stuff like that. And it sounded really good on paper, and I put money into it. And I don't know what happened, but all I know is everything that was promised did not occur, and it made me very upset. And but then again, that's investing. When you make an investment, just make sure you understand that you may not get your money back, and it may not be because somebody ripped you off. That's the thing. That's why you have to be accredited to make these investments. And I recommend only taking money from accredited people who know what they're getting into. Taking money from an investor who's not accredited, who's not experienced as an investor, is kind of like I don't know, having a one night stand with somebody and they think you're gonna get married, like they've never done it before, and they so then they start stalking you, and they come to beat you up because you wouldn't marry them after you slept with them. But maybe it's because there was a misalignment or a misunderstanding of what the situation was, or that's a crass example, but it's kind of funny. Or even I remember one time, it was kind of funny. I remember Al Sharpton. I told you Al Sharpton tells the best stories. I don't. That's the one thing I missed about hanging out with him. I don't agree with him politically though, but he tells the best stories. So the one time he was like giving me like this advice about women, right? Long time ago, like 15 years ago, because he saw I was becoming like kind of famous, and he was like telling me about like what it's like to be a famous man and how the women treat you different and all that. And he said, I had a friend that had a whole lot of money, and he was an older man. He was dating this young, pretty girl, and he didn't understand that she was only with him for the money. She was only dating him because he was able to pay her bills. And then she broke it off because he wasn't paying the bills no more. And he was all upset and he was crying. And he said, you didn't know what that was? He said, she knew what it was. You just didn't know what it was, right? So basically what he was saying is that this misalignment in expectations is what caused the confusion and caused the disappointment. So with investing, there's sometimes a misalignment in expectations. I saw, again, there was a whole controversy around the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. I invested in the Tulsa Fund. I'm glad I did, because I love the Black House. We've done events there. My wife and I have been down. We had an office in there for 2 years. I love the Black House, right? So that's why I'm happy about the investment. And but there was so much controversy around the Tulsa Fund. And I think a lot of it was because the Tulsa Fund was in this tough situation where they were trying to make an ROI right during the pandemic, which was really hard to do in real estate. And during the pandemic, everybody was getting their butt kicked. And I think a lot of people put their money in thinking that their money was going to double or triple in a year, or that it was just going to, grow. And they didn't understand that you could put your money into a perfectly legitimate investment and lose everything. It happens all the time. There's a company called SoftBank that has this massive fund of the Vision Fund, $100 billion. They lost like 20 or 30 billion, like in a year, like just money just disappeared. If you're an investor in Credit Suisse, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund put tens of billions of dollars into Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse came back and said, sorry, money gone, things went bad. That's how the ball bounces, right? So if you're an investor, never think that investing is always easy. It is not always easy to be an investor. You have to have a certain mindset. You have to kind of know what you're getting into, and you have to be ready for the fact that you may put money into something that does not give you your money back. See, and that's the thing. I think that's like part of the myth that people get caught up in. They see people who don't invest. They see investors and people who own stock as people where money's just raining on them and they're always doing well. But they don't see the dark side of that. They don't understand what that feels like to lose. tens of thousands of dollars in a day because the value of your equity went down. Nobody's checking for you then. Nobody's complaining about how rich you are then. But when you are doing well because you held out, because you maintained your investment, because you were consistent, and then suddenly you have some prosperity around that, then suddenly it's like, oh, these rich people, they're terrible people, they're bad, they're blah, 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 blah. And I just kind of resent that a little bit. I think that's unfair. I think that if, believe me, it's, when you talk about the lifestyle of, say, just working and making your money and never investing in anything, you do have less wealth from that, right? But at the same time, you have a type of financial security that an entrepreneur does not have. You have security that an investor does not have. I mean, imagine being the owner of a hair salon where you got 10 people that work for you and they all think you're rich because you're the boss. But that salon doesn't get enough customers. And that week, the salon loses $3,000. All those people are still going to show up asking for their paycheck. Every one of them is going to say, I don't care about your financial problems. Where's my money? If you pay me. Right. And so really, I think that it's important to just understand the yin and the yang. There is no easy way to do much of anything. What I would say, though, is that whatever pathway you choose, there's a culture connected to that. And you just have to kind of acclimate yourself to that culture. Being an entrepreneur and being an investor, I damn near had to become like one of those yogis that does meditation. I literally had to tighten up my meditation skills. I love talking to a therapist. I started doing things like journaling and doing things to clear my head mentally because there's so much like up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And you have to learn how to calm yourself and stay focused. You can't freak out. Right. So preparing yourself for that, mentally preparing yourself for the culture of a wealth builder, of an investor, of an entrepreneur is I think extremely important in terms of you being able to do that, because if you can't, what'll happen is as soon as something goes wrong, you're going to just give up. You're going to just walk away from your business or give up on an investment because it went bad. You're going to end up losing sleep because you're so worried about the value of your stock going up and down or whatever. And I don't want that to happen for you. That's literally why we created a financial therapy department in the Black Business School. There is no other Black financial therapy department on the planet. We created that with therapists because so many of you deal with financial stress, financial anxiety, and all these other side effects that come with trying to just figure out what's going to happen with your money. So let's keep going. Let's see. What emerging markets and material stocks should we look into? I would look for a mutual fund. I would just go to like Vanguard or something and look up for one of their emerging markets funds. You'll find stuff that way. That's a good way to do it. Frank, spending $1,000 in stocks, is that enough to start investing? Yeah, you could start off at $5 in 5 minutes. It's there's no minimum for the most part. John Green, if financial markets become threatened, would owning physical gold then make sense? I think having a little bit of gold is just good in general. I wouldn't get carried away with gold. Like gold is not, sort of the prize investment in your portfolio, but gold is okay. Gold is good for, it protects you against instability and stuff. What is your process for selecting weekly stocks? I pretty much go to several sources and read reports and things like that. And if you want to see the stocks that I picked for this week, I'm going to put a list in by the end of today. So just log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com, look under what Dr. Boyce is buying, and you can see the stocks that are there. And if you don't see anything for this week yet, you can still go back to last week. And the investments from last week or last month are still good. These are all stocks that are going to do well in the next 3 to 5 years. And what I really encourage you to understand is that this is just a really good time to invest because this market is going to every indicator tells me it's going to go up. Every historical indicator. There's nobody in their right mind who knows the stock market who will tell you anything other than it's going to go up in the next 2 years. So it's going to have a story, it's going to do some up and down. Some things are going to happen. Like right now, you have a little bit of a rally, and it's probably a bear market rally. It's probably going to come back down a little bit. But long term, this is a great time to own stocks. My 2 cents. Let's see. Rarick says, do you know where to purchase T-bills? Yeah, if you get on like E-Trade or something, you can actually get in there and buy bonds and stuff like that. A lot of them you have to put up $10,000 though, so just be ready for that. Ranthon, I have an article to share based on what you just mentioned. Is there a good email address to forward it to? Yeah, sure. You can send it to support@theblackbusinessschool.com, support@theblackbusinessschool.com. That's where you can email if you have any support questions or anything like that. They're sitting there waiting to help you in any way they can. So that's support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Let's see here. I've invested $6K in my IRA. I put $6K in Amazon when it was 139. Should I put the other $6K in Amazon to counteract the imbalance? Um, I'm not going to tell you what to do. This is not investing advice, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. You never put all your money in one stock. That's just a general rule for investing. Spread your money out. Very important. What smaller ETF is similar to VOO? SPY, the S&P 500 ETF. SPY is a good way to get broad diversification. So if you go to boycewatkins.com and you look up the $5 a day investing plan, where I help you get your kids off the corporate plantation, you want to get them out of this economic system, unless you like the fact that they're going to experience racism and mistreatment. Get them out of the system. And the way you do that is invest at least $5 a day for them right now while they're young, while they're 1 or 2 years old. Do it consistently, never sell the stock. And then by the time they're in their 20s, they have plenty of money. They have a couple $100,000 in the bank that they can use to solve any financial problem that they have. They don't have to get up. There's nobody that has $250,000 in the bank that has to get up and go to work every day. You know, the difference between freedom and slavery for most Black people is $5,000 a month. So to me, the number one goal for kids, in my view, and for my kids, I think your kids too, is to say, okay, how do we figure out how you can make $5,000 a month without you having to go be a slave for somebody else? That's it. And the reason you have to sell yourself into slavery is when you don't have any skills, when you don't have any other way to survive, when the only, and remember, the school system was designed to create workers and to make you feel like there's only one way to skin an economic cat. And that's just not fun, So I would just encourage you to think outside that box. And so the $5 a day plan is right there on the website. Also, there's a training on boycewatkins.com called How to Make Money Without Working. A lot of you like it, so feel free to go take a look at that. Also, last but not least, you guys know I do have a new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It's easy to memorize. You can give your kids $10, have them memorize the 10 Commandments. And then if you want to go deeper into it, in Houston on the 21st, we'll do a Black Wealth Boot Camp. I have 100 pages of training on that book that I put together in addition to the book, where we go through and kind of talk about the implementation of all that in the process. Okay, so 2 more questions, then we're done for the day. Michael says, as a new investor, where would you spend $3,000 now? I would put it in some sort of S&P 500 fund like SPY or VOO or something that's going to spread your money out, just to kind of get started. Like that's a good way to go, I think. Mutual funds are always fun. Let's see. Last question is what account to set up for kids, not custodial accounts? Where are the kids investing the $5 a day? I don't set up accounts for my kids. I just manage the money myself. I have trusts and things like that in case something happens to me. But basically, you can just do it yourself. You can just open up an account on E-Trade or Robinhood or something and just set it where you're going to invest $35 a week. And you can invest it in something like the ticker symbol SPY is the S&P 500 index fund, or VOO, which is, I think, the Vanguard's S&P 500 index fund, which means that you own a percentage of a lot of the biggest, strongest companies in America. And then that's it. Or if you wanted to have fun, you could just randomly each week pick different stocks. Introducing your kids to stock market investing is something that can happen within the flow of life. Like I showed our 16-year-old how to invest because we were in line at McDonald's and I was bored and I said, we can actually own McDonald's right now if you want to. She was like, what are you talking about? You're going to buy McDonald's? I said, no, we can buy stock in McDonald's. She said, well, what are you talking about? How does that work? And I said, oh, well, you can get on your app and we can put money into McDonald's stock. And I did it right there in front of her. And I said, look, see, now it shows that we own a percentage of McDonald's. So that means that when McDonald's is making money, we're going to make money, right? And that leaves an impression on the kid that helps them understand stock market investing should be a part of their culture. It should be a part of their life. It should be something they do on autopilot for the rest of their life until they're old and gray and dead. And then you pass those assets down to the next generation. That's how you create financial security. It does not make any sense for anybody to be born in our community that does not have wealth left for them, when they come into this planet. The people that were here before you are supposed to leave you something behind. They're supposed to leave property, maybe a business, maybe some stocks, they're supposed to leave you assets. You had your whole life to accumulate assets. You had 60 years, 70 years, 80 years to accumulate assets. How is it there's nothing there? Like, what happened there? Well, the only way that you can spend 70, 80 years doing something and have nothing to show for it is if either you accumulated something and somebody stole it, which is exactly what happened with Black people for a very long time, or you got duped into playing a game where you were a hamster on a wheel and you were running really fast and you weren't going anywhere. You were just running really fast and you were like those electric turbines. You're generating energy for somebody else to make money. So the harder you run, the more wealth somebody else's family is getting. So all that wealth is being accumulated, because wealth is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes hands. But that wealth is being accumulated. It's just going into the hands of your landlord. It's being accumulated. It's going to the hands of the companies that you're spending your money with. It's being accumulated, but it's going to your boss, right? So effectively, that's just the general rule. Nobody should be on this earth for 60 or 70 years and then have nothing to leave behind when they're done, because then the next generation just has to start over with nothing. And that's just absolutely terrible. And so just keep that in mind. It makes you think about these public schools. Like I've always been baffled by the simple question of how is it that a child, if you think about, I did the math. I said, if you go to school for 12 years, a kid goes to school, what about 8 hours a day or something like that? I don't know. Let's say 7 hours a day. So 35 hours a week. And let's say you go to school like 40 hours a year. So you go to school like 1,200 hours a year or something, right? And over a 12-year period, you go to school for what, 24,000 hours? Is that right? Did I do the math right? I think I did the math right. Yeah. So you go to school for 24,000 hours. So I never understood. I said, how is it that a kid is in a building for 24,000 hours and then they leave that building and they still can't read, write, or do math at grade level? What were they doing with all that time? Like, where was that time going? Like, what were you doing with, like, were they playing video games? Were they staring at the wall? Were they working? Like, what were they doing with like 20? Because if you give me 24,000 hours, I can do anything. I'm going to be an airplane pilot in about 3 to 4 weeks. I'm going to speak it into existence. 3 to 4 weeks, I will pass my pilot's license. Do you know? And I keep track of my time. I budget my time like money. Every year, I know that there's 8,760 hours in a year. I budget that time the same way you budget money. Do you know how much time I've spent studying to become an airplane pilot? About 159 hours. I document my time. I put it on a spreadsheet so I can know where I'm putting my energy. I literally have spent 159 hours studying how to be a pilot. I know so much stuff that I did not know before. I can tell you all about different kinds of planes, different kinds of systems, what it means to flow in the traffic pattern, FAA regulations, safety protocols, how to make a cross-country trip, how to do a landing properly, how to do a takeoff. I've done dozens of takeoffs and landings. I did all that in 159 hours. In 159 hours, I will be able to get in an airplane and fly across the country. So if I could do that in 154 hours, how is it that kids can go to school for 24,000 hours and not even know how to read or write or do math? That's a scam, people. You're being cheated. They're stealing your wealth this way. You got to find out what's happening inside that building that says that 24,000 hours is being spent and they're not learning anything. That's insane. That's only by design, in my opinion. That's just robbery of epic proportions. You know, they're robbing your kids of their future. They're robbing your family of their wealth. Your child, who could have been a great asset for you, who could have come along and, you know, when you became a senior citizen, they could be paying all your bills and helping you out and supporting you and having your back and growing empires with you. But instead, you got some child that's like hooked on dope and can't get a job and is struggling financially. I mean, that's stressful. That's very stressful. My parents are both older and they get a little sick sometimes. And I don't even know what they would do if it wasn't for the fact that my sister's a medical doctor, I'm a PhD, and my brother is, you know, a really smart entrepreneur, and we're all getting together and making plans on how to give them what they need when they're struggling. Like I don't know what they would. It would be really difficult for them, you know. So I just think about families where the opposite is true, where you got no help, you know. And I just really encourage you to understand, like, your children are an asset. It's not like you're using them. They're using you. Lord knows. Look at how many sacrifices you make for the kids. Ain't nothing wrong with them helping you the same way you help them. Nothing wrong with that at all. So when they take that child of yours and that child is not getting any of the essential skills they need to be a successful person in this country, that should piss you off. That makes me angry. That bothers me. I don't understand that. I'm tired of handing my children over to white people. I have no interest in doing that. So if I had kids right now, I'm not gonna have any more kids. I'm 51. But if I was to have another child right now, ain't no way on earth I'm dropping my child off to some public school that's going to waste 24,000 hours of my child's life and not teach them the things they need to know to be a successful Black person in a country where racism is rampant and mistreatment occurs on a daily basis and all that stuff. Because at that point, when they're not prepared, all they can do is grow up and cry about it. All they can do is grow up and say, and get on Twitter and get mad and say, well, this is what white people do. White people be doing that all the time. They be treat me, they be doing it. And I get all that, but forget all that, man. Like, the victim box is played out. It's time to make a plan. Make a damn plan. Your plan can't be to be a victim. That's not a good plan. So anyway, thank you for letting me get that out. The reason I go into this, I know we talk about the X's and O's of finance and stock market class and all that. We're always going to do that. But I really need you to understand not just the what, but the why. Like the what and the how are important, but what's really more important than the what and the how is the why. Like, why are you doing this? Why does this matter? Why does wealth matter? I'm never going to be the guy who's going to say you need to learn investing so you can dress like your favorite rapper and buy a Gucci belt or whatever. You can do that if you want to, but that's not why you're doing this, in my opinion. You're doing this because you're Black. And if you're struggling financially and you don't have economic security, they're going to beat you up. They're going to mistreat you. They're going to treat you like crap. And also, there are so many people that have a vested interest in seeing you just stuck, seeing you like with no options. They like to see you with no options because then they can come along like a good pimp. Like a good pimp comes along with somebody that's struggling and says, here, let me feed you some bread. And here, let me put a coat on you. Let me give you a place to stay. And then you are loyal to the pimp, right? And so effectively, America doesn't really want you to be empowered and independent and all this. Black independence is one of the most threatening concepts on earth because integration, I saw that term. You know what? Let me give you an example. I'm in Hawaii right now, and I was reading about the history of Hawaii and how Hawaii was forced to integrate into the United States. I don't know if y'all know the history. Again, I'm not an expert, so if I get something wrong, forgive me. But I read the history, and Hawaii had people in the 19th century that were like, we're good. We're an independent empire. We're fine. America's like, no, you're not. We're going to integrate you. And I said, they used the word integration. We know how integration worked for Black people. And they said, we're going to force Hawaii to integrate. And when there was a queen, I forgot her name, but there was a queen who said, we don't want to integrate. We're good. We're okay. You know what they did? They went and they basically took her out of office. They dethroned the queen, and they sent their ships and surrounded the island and forced this queen out of her throne so they could integrate Hawaii into the country because they're like, Hawaii's got resources. We want to integrate you so we can get what you got. Well, that's what they did with Black people. They integrated you so they could get what you got. They didn't integrate you because they liked you. They integrated you because they wanted what you had. So effectively, there are people that have a vested interest in seeing you play your role in integration. The idea of independence and all this other stuff that we talk about is not a welcome concept. That's why they're all afraid of me, even though I'm not a scary person. I'm very nice to white people when I meet them, but for some reason they're also, that people get scared of me because I say these things that they're not used to hearing Black people say. And then also, generally speaking, I just think about the fact that this system, it didn't really want me to become whatever I am right now. They wanted me to stay in special ed. They wanted me to be on Ritalin. They wanted me to become a victim. They wanted me to align with whatever ideology that young Black males get sucked into. They wanted those things from me. They didn't want me to be whatever I am right now because I'm a thorn in their side. These ideas are a thorn in their side. If I convince you to really embrace the idea of economic independence, then you can no longer become an asset to other people. You become an asset to yourself. So just like the hamster running on the wheel, instead of all the energy from the turning wheel, instead of all that electricity going into somebody else's battery and powering up somebody else's empire, it actually turns and you're recircuiting, you're rewiring it where you're still running on the wheel, but all that power is going into your family. It's going into your own institution. It's going into your own community. And that's when you start seeing Black people win. How in the hell can a people work this hard and be this broke? Ask yourself that question. How in the world can a group of people work this damn hard? I mean, you work harder than anybody. You've been working your whole life. You're going to work until you die, some of you. A lot of us are, right? How in the world, how in the world can you work this hard and stay broke? If you don't ask yourself that question, you're going to always be confused. Like it's a plan. It's designed that way. So just if you're going to work hard, and I think hard work is very important, but if you're going to work hard for yourself. You know, I'm a very lazy person when it comes to doing stuff for other people that I don't care about. I am. I got jobs in my life and I would get fired from the job. They say, Boyce is so lazy, he don't want to work hard. No, it's not that I don't want to work hard. I just don't want to work hard for you, because the why is very important to me. Not just the what and the how, but the why. Like, why am I doing this? And if I can't come up with a good why, if the why doesn't make sense to me, like if why I'm working hard every day is to make my boss rich, well, that doesn't make sense to me. You know, or why am I working hard? Wait, so I can just pay rent to the landlord? I'm just going to go get the money so I can just give it to him? That's not a motivator. No, I work hard because I'm retaining these benefits for the people that I love and the people I care about, people that look like me. So when I have that energy, then I feel like, oh yeah, I'm the hardest working person in the room. So be thoughtful, you know, and this is self-love. You got to value and love yourself enough to say, if I'm going to give you my best, I'm going to give my best to someone who's going to give me their best. I'm going to give my best to a situation that's going to benefit me and not just benefit other people. And that fundamentally, honestly, is as much a self-esteem and a self-confidence conversation as it is a wealth conversation. A person with high self-esteem, a person with self-love, a person with self-confidence is going to say, you know, I could go work for you. I could go be a part of what you got going on. But I have enough confidence to know that if I put this level of energy into something that is ours, something that is mine, or that's something that reflects my family's name, I can turn that into something special too. I know that I can do something special for you. I don't need you to validate me on that. I don't need white people to tell me, for example, that I'm smart and that my PhD, you know, gives me a lot of economic superpowers and everything else. I know these things. So at that point, now that I know this and I don't need you to validate any of that anymore, my question at that point is, what's the best use for all this energy and all this skill? You know, all this big, beautiful brain I got, what's the best use for that? Well, the best use for it is to do what I'm doing with you right now. And that's why I swear to you on a stack of Bibles, Harvard University could call me tomorrow and offer me $10 million a year to become president of that institution. I would have no problem saying no, and I would sleep very well at night. And the reason I would say no is because I would tell them politely, I have a more important mission. And my most important mission is to develop the Black Business School, because in a couple hundred years, we're going to be the Harvard for Black people. So there's no other place I need to be. This is the most important place for me to be on this entire earth. So I will never abandon you. I will never go somewhere else and be doing something else because I done finally made it big. And that's silly. I've already made it big. I'm right here with you. That's where I need to be. All right. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. It was good to see you. Good to talk to you. I hope this conversation was helpful. I hope we learned something. Also, by the way, the book, if you want to get it on Amazon, order the book on Amazon right now, actually, if you haven't, because my team, you know, they're getting so many orders that they're having a hard time keeping up with the orders. And Amazon will get you the book in a couple of days anyway. And I don't mind, you know, giving them a cut of the money to ship out the books. So if you go, it's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. So feel free to grab a copy. If you have extra money and you want to get extra copies and give them out to your friends, that would be really awesome, because I would love for as many people as possible to have the message. Second of all, I'll be in Houston April 21st for the 2-day Black Wealth Bootcamp. So if you want to go to Houston and join us, feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. Third, if you go to boycewatkins.com, there's also some other free stuff there. I have a list of AI stocks that I really like. So feel free to go to my website. You can pick up that list of AI stocks. We have financial workbooks and flashcards for kids that you guys know. So feel free to go take a look at all that. In the Black Business School, we got you. So that's it. And also we're doing the stock options training camp. We're doing week 2 on Thursday. So some of you were there for week 1. A few hundred of you were there. Everything's recorded. So if you still want to join us, it's not too late. And that information is also at boycewatkins.com. So